Sports betting, a Bridgeport casino. What does the future hold for Connecticut? With us now is Rodney Butler. He is the chairman of the Mashantucket Pequot tribe. And Mr. Butler, good to see you back here on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Frequent guest over the years.
Yeah.
So while I have you here, just because we were talking about the coronavirus, any word as to what the casino is doing right now, the resort is doing too?
Yeah, actually,
keep everything safe
we're
there?
being incredibly proactive about it, right? I mean, because safety is one of our #1 guest responses when we do surveys and hear from them what they appreciate most about Foxwoods, in addition to the experience itself. And so we want to get ahead of it because, I mean, the high likelihood that it is going to get to the United States, right? It is now, but in broader exposure than that is. And being a location where there's a lot of people congregating, we feel responsible that we want to protect people. And so just this week, we upped the level of hand sanitizer locations we have about the property. We're sending out constant communication to our employees to let them know what to look for within themselves and within the patrons, and just to be diligent on it. So we're absolutely getting in front of it.
You have so many people in there, and they come from all over the world to come to the casino. Are there people walking through, like, wiping down the machines and things like that?
Always. I mean, we've been doing that prior to, but we're making sure now, we're double checking it to make sure every machine is wiped and re-wiped and moving forward. So.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the gambling issues coming up in the state this year. And one is sports betting.
Yeah.
We had the man on from Sport Tech a couple weeks ago who believes that he should have some sort of a potential stake in sports betting in the state. There is an argument that the tribes will have the rights to that.
Yeah.
What do you believe?
Yeah. Well, I believe what it's been for the last 30 years, right? The reality is we have an agreement with the state, a contract with the state for the last 30 years for exclusivity on gaming. And that has included games like slot machines, but also table games, bingo, everything else. And so this has been, sports betting itself has actually been identified as a casino game by many other jurisdictions. In fact, just last month, the National Indian Gaming Commission, which regulates all tribal gaming throughout the country, said sports betting clearly is a Class 3 game, which means it's a casino game. And so for me, there's really no discussion around that. Discussion is, how do we get this done, get it done quickly, and start generating revenue for the state of Connecticut?
So how do you think it should get done?
Well, so we have a bill that we've been working on. Actually, the bill started with the governor last session, and then it morphed into conversations with the speaker and the minority leader of the House. And we were up against a midnight deadline last year, which it's difficult, I understand that, but it really set the framework for this year's session. And so since then, we've been working with some of the legislative leadership, and Kathy Austin in particular, to put flesh on the bones of the bill. And so the bill is actually out there. It's SB 21. I'll be in front of the Public Safety Committee this coming Tuesday to discuss it and talk about the framework of it. But it's very, very simple. It just simply says that we're expanding on the current arrangements between the tribes and the states, similar to like we've already done with Keno, which is incredibly successful for the state. And we're going to layer in sports betting. We're going to do online sports betting, online gaming, and the likes throughout the state. And it was interesting because listening to my good friend Senator Duff on your prior conversation, and he spoke about we need to stay competitive with states around us. And so when you see the success that sports betting's having in Rhode Island, when you see what it's having in New York, in New Jersey, in Pennsylvania, and now even New Hampshire, it's it's time for Connecticut to get in the game.
Unrelated question, but it's what Senator Duff was talking about in terms of marijuana being competitive. You allow smoking in some parts of the casino. If marijuana was legal, would that be allowed in the gaming rooms at all?
We'd have to see what the regulations say.
Because you're a sovereign nation, you have to go by the laws.
We're a sovereign nation. That's something that we've been monitoring where the state's going with marijuana, right? And we want to make sure that if it does go, that from a regulatory perspective, that we're covered in that sense. And just like smoking today, we keep smoking out of the public spaces. In jurisdictions where marijuana is legal, you don't see smoking on the gaming floor. So I don't think that we would allow that.
Okay, back to the gambling issue. Let's talk about Bridgeport a little bit, because Mayor Ganem would like to see a casino in Bridgeport. He's talked about it. Is that something that the Pequots and the Mohegans would want to do in Bridgeport? Yeah. And would they have exclusivity to that?
So, yes.
There's not tribal land there.
No, yes, absolutely. And so there's not tribal land in East Windsor either, but that still falls within their exclusivity. And so the reality is we've already set the stage for this by the legislation for East Windsor. That's how we worked with the Department of Interior for the last 2.5 years, with lawsuits and everything going on with our friends from out of state.
Where does that stand right now?
We've actually resolved it. And so
in terms of the opening date and all that?
No, we've resolved the legal issues. And so now there's some local zoning issues that we're resolving. And then once those are resolved, we have to go through rezoning in East Windsor. And once that's done, then we can start moving forward with construction. And so we're optimistic about that. But that same concept in East Windsor applies to Bridgeport. So it would fall under exclusivity. And this was the great negotiation at the end of last session between the governor, between ourselves, between Mayor Ganem, and saying, we can make something work in Bridgeport, but you have to reset your expectations. It's not Mohegan Sun, it's not Foxwoods, but there's something that works for that market that is accretive to Connecticut's gaming economy that doesn't take away from the existing facilities. And so we've proposed in the bill a $100 million investment in Bridgeport that would require them to also put some skin in the game, whether it be, looking at additional development around wherever site that we pick, which we haven't chosen yet because we don't have legislation. But we would work with the city, with the state on a joint development project in Bridgeport.
Would this be larger than East Windsor?
Relatively same size. Right, it's similar markets, right? I mean, Bridgeport is much closer to New York, obviously, but right now we don't have as much competition, and so we'd be cannibalizing ourselves if we overbuilt it. So we'd certainly build it for the market.
MGM Springfield is not doing as well as some people had expected.
Yeah.
You had predicted it might not do well.
Yeah.
How has it impacted your business?
Well, so the good thing that we've done, so I said this in the testimony I gave last week, both Pequot and Mohegan could have chose to do nothing and just let MGM and Boston overtake us. And we decided that we're in Connecticut, we're not going anywhere, and we have to protect our lands. And so we reinvested. And so when you go to Foxwoods in the last 2 to 3 years, I mean, it's completely renovated. Right? We have all new restaurants, and the public spaces are done, the gaming spaces are clean, brand new slot machines. And so because of those reinvestments, we've actually fared fairly well against MGM. And the most important reason that we fared well, in addition to that, is just the loyalty that our players have to Foxwoods and to Mohegan because of all the experiences that we've offered for them for over almost 30 years now.
Every so often you get a lawmaker or a reporter who says, well, why don't we just rip up this compact that Governor Weicker signed with the tribes years ago, and let's do something different. Let's open it up to capitalism, an open market, and the monopoly.
Right.
What do you say to that?
Well, I think the point, that ship has sailed, right? And even the individuals that wanted to test the waters on that, i.e. some of the commercial operators from out of state that came in, they realized that financially it didn't make sense. When you think about the $250 million a year that provides to the state via the Pequot Mohegan Fund versus to try to make that up and then compete against two facilities that would be no longer paying that, the math just doesn't work. And so the legislature gets that, the governor gets that, and so we're all on the same page now trying to resolve this issue of working on their exclusivity and getting sports betting and online gaming done for the state of Connecticut.
Rodney Butler, the chairman of the Mashantucket Pequots, thank you for being on the program. We should also point out you're a former UConn football player. Always love to say that.
Thank you.
After the break, the race for Congress, and we welcome your comments on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter right now.